Good afternoon. So today we will see input buffering. So there are various approaches to the buffering which are important to make a distinction between two types. The block oriented, the device store information in block a time. The stream oriented, the device transfer data in and out stream of bytes. So, perform input transfer in advance of request being made and perform output transfer sometime after the request is made. So, block oriented device and stream oriented device. In block oriented device, it stores the information in the blocks that are usually of fixed size. Then it transfers. The transfers are made one block at a time. Then possible to reference data by its block number. The disk and USB keys are examples. In stream oriented device, it transfers the data in and out as a stream of bytes. There is no block structure. The terminals, printers, communication ports, and most other devices that are not secondary storage are the examples. So the input output devices are the pieces of the hardware which are used by the human or other system to communicate with a computer. For instance, a keyboard or a computer mouse is an input device for a computer, while the monitor and printer are the output devices. Basically, the input output devices are categorized into two types, that is a block device and the character device. So the block device means a block device is one that stores the information in a fixed size block, each one with its own address. The common block size range from 512 bytes to 32,768 bytes. Here all transfers are in the units of one or more entire blocks. It is possible to read or write each block independently of other ones. For example, hard disk, CD-ROM, USB, etc. Character device means a character device delivers or accepts a stream of character without regard to any block structure. It is not addressable and does not have any seek information. Printer, network interfaces, mic for printing, and most other devices that are not disk-like can be seen as a character device. For example, serial port, parallel ports, sound cards, etc. So the difference between the block and the character devices is that the block devices are the hardware devices which randomly access fixed size chunks of the data, and the character devices are accessed as a stream of sequential data one byte after another. The seeking is possible in block, seeking is not allowed in character. Read and write done by the buffer cache mechanism by break, be read, be write. These requests may be asynchronous, and the read and write calls do not return until the operation is complete. In block, more complex than character drivers. In character, it is less complex than block driver. The kernel does not have to provide an entire subsystem to block device. The kernel doesn't have to provide an entire subsystem to the character device. Example of block system: hard disk, pen drive. Example of character: keyboard and keyboard device, serial port. So the input output units typically consist of a mechanical component and an electronic component. The device controller works like an interface between a device and a device driver. The input output units such as keyboard, mouse, printer, etc. typically consist of mechanical component and an electronic component, where electronic component is called the device controller. So any device that is connected to the computer is connected by a plug and socket is connected to a device controller. So following the model for so no buffer means without a buffer the operating system directly accesses the device when it needs. This diagram shows for the no buffering. Here operating system directly accesses the device when it needs. Then the next diagram is single buffering. Your operating system assigns a buffer in main memory for an input-output request. So the transfer is complete. The process moves the block into the user space and immediately requests another block. This is called reading ahead or anticipated input. Double buffer. Here an improvement over a single buffering can be by assigning two system buffers to the operating. This technique is known as double buffering or buffer swapping. Circle buffer means a double buffer scheme should smooth out the flow of data between an input-output device and a process when more than two buffers are used. The utility of buffering, it is a technique that smooths out peaks in input-output demand. So, in single buffer, the operating system assigns a buffer in main memory for an input-output request. The block-oriented single buffer. Here, the input transfer are made to the system buffer. The reading ahead. The block-oriented single buffer. Here, the input transfer are made to the system buffer. The reading ahead anticipated input is done in expectation that the block will eventually be needed. When the transfer is complete, the process moves the block into the user space and immediately requests another block. Generally, it provides a speed up compared to the lack of system buffering. There are some disadvantages that it complicates the logic in the operating system. Swapping logic is also affected. So single in a block oriented, here the input transfer made to buffer, the block move to the user space when it is needed, and another block is moved into the buffer, read ahead. The block oriented, the user process can process one block of data while next block is read in. Here swapping can occur since input is taking place in system memory, not user memory. Here the operating system keeps a track of assignment of the system buffer to the user process. So stream oriented single buffer, there is a line at a time operation and byte at a time operation. In line at a time operation, it is appropriate for scroll mode terminals, that is dumb terminals. Here user input is one line at a time with return signaling the end of a line. In line at a time operation, the output to the terminal is similarly one line at a time. In byte at a time operation, it is used on forms mode terminals when each keystroke is significant. Other peripherals such as sensors and controllers. Next is also in single buffer in stream oriented, it is used a line at a time. Here user input from a terminal is one line at a time with carry return signaling the end of the line, and the output to the terminal is one line at a time. Next is double buffer. In double buffer, it uses two system buffers instead of one. A process can transfer the data to or from one buffer while the other operating system empties or fills the other buffer. It is also known as buffer swapping. So in double buffer, it uses two system buffers instead of one, and a process which can transfer the data to or from the buffer while the operating system it empties or fills the other system. Here the diagram show diagram is drawn for the double buffering. Next is circular buffering. In circular buffer, two or more buffers are used. Here each individual buffer is one unit in a circular buffer. It is used when input-output operation must keep up with the process. Now the diagram for the circular buffering is shown here. Now the diagram for different bufferings are shown. First one is the for no buffering, and second diagram is for the single buffering, third diagram is for double buffering, and the last diagram is for circular buffering. So these are input output buffering schemes for ink. So what is the utility of buffering? the technique that smooth out the peaks in input output demand. With enough demand, eventually all buffers becomes full and their advantage is lost. When there is a variety of input output and process activities to the service, buffering can increase the efficiency of the output operating system and the performance of individual process. Next is disk performance parameters. So the disk performance parameter, here the operation depend on the computer system, operating system, and the nature of the input output channel and the disk controller hardware. Now the diagram is shown for the timing of the disk input output transfer. So the to read or write, the disk head must be positioned at the desired track and at the beginning of the desired sector. Now seek time means the time it takes to the position the head at the desired track, and the rotational delay or rotational latency means here the time it's take for the beginning of the sector to reach the head. So this is a seek time and rotational delay or rotational latency. So positioning the read write heads, when the disk drive is operating, the disk is rotating at a constant speed. To read or write, the head must be positioned at the desired track and at the beginning of the desired sector on that track. Track selection involves moving the head in movable head system or electronically selecting one head on a fixed head system. On movable head system, the time it takes to position the head at a track is known as seek time. The time it takes for the beginning of the sector to reach the head is known as rotational delay, and the sum of seek time and rotational delay equals the access time. So the timing of a disk input output transfer, in that diagram there is a time for wait for the device, wait for the channel, seek time, rotational time, and the data transfer, which is shown in this diagram. And the wait for the channel, seek time, rotational delay, and data transfer, these all devices, this is called in that in this time it is a device is busy. So there is some device scheduling policies such as seek time is the reason for the differences in performance. For a single disk, there will be a number of input output requests. If requests are selected randomly, get poor performance. So this is the comparison of disk scheduling algorithm. So first is the FIFO, that is first in first out. Then SSTF, that is shortest service time first. Then next is the scan and C scan. So the first in first out, here the starting at the track of 100, SSTF starting at the track of 100, in scan starting at 100 in the direction of increasing the track number. So here comparison of the disk scheduling algorithm is shown. Now first is first in first out, that is FIFO. Here the process request sequentially, that is processes in sequential order. It is fair to all processes and approaches random scheduling in performance if there are many processes. So the diagram is shown for the first in first out. The priority is that the goal is not to optimize the disk use but to meet other objectives. The short batch jobs may have higher priority. Also, it provides a good interactive response time. Now this is disk scheduling algorithm, which shows random FIFO, PRI, LIFO. So this is selection according to the requester. The description for the random is that random scheduling. FIFO means first in first out. PRI means priority by process and last in first out. So remark for the random is that for analysis and simulation. For FIFO it is fairest of them all. Then the next is control outside of disk queue management, and last is the maximized locality and resource utilization. Next is the selection according to the requested item. For the shortest service time first, the remark is that it has a high utilization small queue. For scan back and forth over disk, better service distribution. C scan means one way with a fast return. The lower service variability. N step scan, it's scan of n's record at a time and the service guarantee. F scan means the n step scan with n queue size at beginning of scan cycle and load sensitive. So for priority, the control of the scheduling is outside the control of the disk management software. Here the goal is not to optimize the disk utilization but to meet other objectives. Here the short batch jobs and the interactive jobs are given higher priority. Also it provides a good interactive response time. Longer jobs may have to wait an excessively long time, a poor policy for database systems. So SSTF shortest service seek time first. It selects the disk input-output requests that require the least movement of the disk arm from its current position. It always chooses the minimum seek time. The diagram for the SSTF is shown here. Next is the scan. So in scan, it is also known as the elevator algorithm. The arm moves in one direction only. It satisfies all outstanding requests until it reaches the last track in that direction. Then the direction is reversed. The favors jobs whose requests are for the tracks nearest to both innermost and the outermost track. So in scan, the direction is reverse. In C-scan, it restricts the scan to one direction only. When the last track has been visited in one direction, the arm is returned to the opposite end of the disk and the scan begins again. So this is all about C-scan. Next is N-step scan. Here, it segments the disk request queue into a subsequence of length N. The six subsequences are processed one at a time using scan. The new request added to the other queue when queue is processed. Next is F-scan. There are two subsequences. At the start of scan, all requests in one queue. The other queue is empty and available for a new request. So during scan, all new requests are put into other queue. The service of new request is deferred until all of the old requests have been processed. Next is RAID. So RAID means redundant array of independent disks. It consists of 7 levels 0 to 6. So RAID is a set of physical disk drives viewed by the operating system as a single logical drive. Here, the data are distributed across the physical drives of an array in a scheme known as stripping. The redundant disk capacity is used to store the parity information, which guarantees the data recoverability in case of disk failure. So this is design architecture that shares three characteristics. There are basically three characteristics of RAID. RAID means a redundant array of independent disks. So the term was originally coined in a paper by a group of researchers at the University of California in Berkeley. The paper outlined various configurations and applications and introduced the definition of RAID levels. The strategy that employs multiple disk drives and distributes data in such a way as to enable simultaneous access to the data from multiple drives. It improves the input output performance and allows easier incremental in, easier incremental increases in capacity. The unique contribution is to address effectively the need for redundancy. It makes use of stored priority information that enable the recovery of the data lost due to the disk failure. So this table shows the different grade levels. It has different categories: stripping, mirroring, parallel access and independent access. So stripping is level 0, mirroring is level 1, parallel access has level 2 and 3, and independent access has level 4, 5 and 6. So the stripping, it has description, it is non-redundant. Mirroring means it is mirrored. The disk required for the first level 0 is n. For level 1 it is 2n. For parallel access for level 2 it is redundant via Hamming code, and for level 3 it is bit interlevel parity. For level 4 it is block interlevel parity. For 5 block interlevel distributed parity, and for 6 block interlevel dual distributed parity. So here the disk required for all this level is shown here. Also the data availability is shown: large input output data transfer capacity, also small input output request rate. So this table shows the different RAID levels with its information. So RAID 0 is non-redundant, RAID 1 is mirrored, RAID 2 is redundancy through Hamming code, RAID 3 is bit interlevel parity, RAID 4 block level parity, RAID 5 block level distributed parity, and RAID 6 is dual redundancy. Next is disk cache. So cache memory is used to apply to a memory that is smaller and faster than the main memory, and it is interposed between the main memory and the processor. So it reduces the average memory access time by exploiting the principle of locality. The disk cache is buffer in main memory for disk sectors. Also, it contains a copy of some of the sectors on the disk. When an input output request is made for particular sector, a check is made to determine if the sectors is in the disk cache. If it is yes, then the request is satisfied via cache, and if it is no, the requested sector is read into the disk and the cache from the disk. Then LRU, that is least recently used, the most commonly used algorithm that deals with the design issue of replacement strategy. The block that has been in the cache the longest with no reference to it is replaced. A stack of the pointer references the cache. Most recently referenced block is on the top of the stack. When a block is referenced or brought into the cache, it is placed on the top of the stack. So the block on the bottom of the stack is removed when new block is brought in. The block don't actually move around in main memory and a stack pointer is used. Then the next is LFU, that is least frequently used. The block that has experienced the fewest reference is replaced. A counter is associated with each block and counter is incremented each time block is accessed. When replacement is required, the block with the smallest count is selected. So the block with the smallest count is selected for the replacement, and some block that may be referenced many times in a short period of time and the reference count is misleading. So Unix buffer cache, it is essentially a disk cache. The input output operation with a disk are handled through the buffer cache. The data transfer between the buffer cache and the user process space always occur using DMA, that does not use up any processor cycles. It does consumes bus cycle. There are three lists are maintained: free list, device list, and driver input output queue. Free list means here the list of all slots in the cache that are available for allocation. The device list means here the list of all buffer currently associated with each disk. The driver input output queue, the list of buttons that are actually undergoing on or waiting for input output on a particular device. Then Linux page cache. For Linux 2.4 and later, there is a single unified page cache for all traffic between the disk and main memory. So benefits of this is that the dirty pages can be collected and written out efficiently. The pages in the page cache are likely to be referenced again due to temporal locality. So basics of input output facilities: the cache manager, network drivers, file system drivers, and hardware device drivers. First, cache manager. It maps the region of the file into the kernel virtual memory and then relies on the virtual memory manager to copy pages to and from the files on the disk. Then the next, network drivers. Here the Windows includes integrated networking capabilities and its support for a remote file system. The facilities are implemented as a software drivers. For file system drivers, it sends input output requests to the software drivers that manage the hardware device adapter. And the last, hardware device driver. Here the source code of the Windows device driver is portable access different processor type. So, the operating system design issue consists of the desirable to handle all input-output devices in uniform manner, and it hide most of the details of the device input-output in lower level routine. So the input-output buffering, there is a reason for buffering. The process must wait for input-output to complete the before proceeding, and certain pages must remain in main memory during input-output. So we have already seen the block oriented and stream oriented. Block oriented means information is stored in a fixed size block and it transfer here the transfer are made a block at a time, and it is used for the disk and USB keys. For stream oriented, the transfer information as a stream of byte. It is used for the terminal, printer, communication port, mouse and other pointing devices and most other devices that are not secondary storage. So the evaluation of input output function, here the processor directly control a peripheral device and the controller or the input output module is added. The processor uses a programmed input output without interrupts. The processor does not need to handle the details of external devices. The input output module is a separate processor, and this module has its own local memory and it is a computer in its own right. So this is the evaluation of the input output address. The direct memory address means the processor delegates the input output operation to the DMA module, that is direct memory address. This module transfers the data directly to or from the memory. When the transfer is complete, the DMA module sends an interrupt signal to the processor. So typical DMA block diagram consists of the data count, data register, address register, control logic. This is all about the DMA. There is a data line from the data register, address line from the address register, and the control logic has the lines like the request to DMA, acknowledge from the DMA, interrupt read and write signals. So the single bus detached DMA consists of processor, DMA, input, output and memory. The single bus integrated DMA consists of the processor, DMA with input, output, The operating system design issues, it is the most input output device extremely slow compared to the main memory. The use of multiprogramming allows for some processes to be waiting and on input output while another process execute. The input output cannot keep up with the processor speed. The swapping is used to bring in additional ready process, which is an input output operation. So it is desirable to handle all input output devices in uniform manner and hide most of the detail of the device input output in lower level routine. So this is all about the input output management and disk scheduling. The next part of this chapter is the file management. We will see it in next lecture. So the file management consists of the file organization, file directories, file sharing, record blocking, allocation methods, and free space management. So we will see all these file management points in the next lecture. Thank you.